Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
Hey y'all, Dave Mopper here. Welcome in. This pod is a compilation of lessons in fatherhood and leadership. I'm using it to explore the path to raising legends, and I'm sharing it all with you. Each episode provides a really raw and unique perspective on fatherhood, and it's what I've come to love about these conversations. There is something for every father who's in growth mode. All right, enjoy the combo. Mr. Mark Guay, welcome back to Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Glad to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me back on.
You're the first repeat guest, so no pressure.
I feel like Kevin Bacon all of a sudden. I don't know, privileged and old. That's great.
And by the way, you were the first guest, like the ultimate first guest. And I
Mm.
took a bit of a sabbatical for the last 6 months, 7 months on this, and
Okay.
we're relaunching,
Great.
or whatever. We're
Sure.
just doubling down. So it's kind of poetic that here you are again.
Let's do it, man.
You and I, we've been talking about fatherhood and business as our foundational connection here. And the good news is you've got some things about to change in your life. How are you feeling about it? Tell the audience what is
Yeah.
about to go down, my friend.
What? I feel, yeah, it is what it feels like. So I have a son, Rowan, 5 years old, and he is welcoming in a baby sister coming in any day now. Literally any day my wife could open the door and say, my water broke. Like last time, that's how it started. And yeah, any day now, she's going into labor, and we're welcoming in our second child, a baby girl. I get to be a girl dad, which I'm really excited about.
That's a nice combo, a boy and a
Yeah,
girl. Probably
yeah,
in that order, ideally, although it'd
yeah,
be fine in any order, but I just like the,
yeah,
you know. And I thought when you alluded to it on a couple social media posts and so forth, and I'm like, wait, this is happening. How neat would it be to hear your take before,
yeah,
leading up to, right as the tension is building,
yeah. It is.
and
For
to
sure.
get the mindset of anticipation rather than
Yeah,
after the fact. Shortly after the fact would have been interesting too. But
yeah.
so, I mean, what do you think is, what's the biggest tangible difference for you as father? We want to get to Caitlin maybe, but it's like,
Yeah.
what's the biggest difference this second round? You actually know what it means to step into fatherhood a
I
little
do.
bit because but what's
Yeah.
different for you? What have you noticed about your mindset,
Hmm.
your thinking patterns, what you've done to prepare perhaps? I don't want to
Yeah.
feed you too many things, but what's
Sure.
different
Hmm.
with the second kid en route?
Yeah. Well, I welcome this. This is a question we could talk about for the entire time, and I welcome you to dig into the nuance of it all a lot. I mean, there's just a lot. It's on one hand, there's a little bit of amnesia, quite honestly, about what that was like because I think back to 6 years ago when my wife was pregnant with our son, and what a different world that was. We were living in a different place. We were living in San Diego in a two-bedroom condo. Uh, and the life was it was just it was COVID time, right? That COVID thing that happened, that was the big thing going on. And didn't even know if I was going to be able to be there at the delivery. I think
That's rough.
2 weeks before my wife went into labor, they changed the rule in the hospital that the husband could be there, which I actually didn't know about until after my son was born, because I would have been really interested to see what it would have been like if they said, "No, sir, you can't come in." I would have been
Yeah,
like, "Excuse me?"
yeah. Watch this.
Like, you should have seen the way I was when they made my wife put on a mask when we first got there. And I was like, "Excuse me, what are we doing?" And they did a rapid test. Rapid test had just come out. And so thankfully she only had to wear it for, I think it was 5 or 10 minutes. It's by no means was gonna let them have a mask on while she was in labor. Not gonna happen. So that went well. But what's it like now? Now it's different because, well, on one hand, y- I know what to expect in some way, and on the other hand, I have this 5-year-old son, 5.5-year-old son who is I'm getting to see it kind of through his eyes. So That's really adorable. It's really cute seeing him kiss, his mommy's belly and to give her a hug and to ask all these questions. And he comes up with all these funny names of what her name should be, and he asks all these, adorable questions. And just last night I was saying, oh, because he has a bear as his main animal that is actually the same bear that my wife had, that his mother had. And his name is Barry, and it is very clearly a 40-some-year-old bear. Like, this thing is kind of gross looking, but my son just loves it. So,
Yeah, yeah. Played with the ringer a few times.
so
Huh?
it's still
Seen
there.
better.
Yeah, yeah. And I asked him, I said, which of your animals should we give to your sister? And he goes, "Mm," and he's kind of going, and then he kind of goes into this, like, their mind kind of, so that's been interesting, kind of watching him oscillate between, I'm watching him he's kind of doing some baby speak right now. He's doing like a gaga goo goo thing. And then other times he'll be really excited and talk about how, he wants to do all these things with his baby sister. So I say that's really the main difference. And then to get really clear, because I think I have a tendency to be a Mr. Agreeable guy, and I know this is a podcast, and I know we're friends, and I can put on this air like I'm just excited and everything's great and all of that.
Yeah.
But no, there's also another part of I know what's going to happen. And it's kind of this feeling of like my arms are up going like, oh, like how are we going to do this? Because I have my pressures feel bigger now. And I don't know if that's just my own story. You can probably coach me out of that. But I definitely feel like the pressure is heavier, thicker, there's more weight. And I also know what to expect. Now, to be clear, when my wife went into labor with our son, I think you know this. It's not the same story as yours. I know your NICU story was pretty intense. For us, my wife went into labor. Labor went great. Delivery went great. She actually left the day after delivery. No pain medication whatsoever, not even a Tylenol. And then 2 days later, I had to rush her back to the hospital because she almost had, oh, the name's escaping me. Uh, I can't think of, some sort of infection, but a really bad infection that could have killed her, literally.
Sepsis?
And
Blood infection?
yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so I had to take her to the hospital at 2 in the morning. And it was just this real tumultuous time of I wasn't able to go into the hospital because of COVID. And a nurse had to run out this tiny test tube of my wife's breast milk to then give to my son. And it was a really challenging time. And, we didn't have any formula that we were going to use, that we were using at that time. So it was just really challenging. And so there's a little bit of that trauma response of going, oh, geez. And my wife had, full disclosure, a very serious case of postpartum. And so, the first 6 months after my son was born were really hard for her, on her body, on her psyche, on her emotions. And my son was not what some would call an easy baby, meaning he didn't go to sleep. Really, he didn't sleep through the night until like a year and a half old, full, to be perfectly clear. And it was he didn't have I forget what the name of it was. He wasn't the type of baby that just cried all the time, but it was enough where literally my neighbors in the condo, when I saw him in the parking lot when I would go to my car, several times people would say, "Is everything okay?" Like that was really impactful to kind of have these other parents and other people go, "Is everything okay?" Thinking, "Oh, geez, is that more than usual?" And yeah, he cried a lot. He didn't sleep. Now, there's a lot of factors into that. Did he have enough calories? All these things that could have went into it, right? So we're a little bit more prepared this time. I have some good formula ready to go in case we need to bring some extra calories in. We have more support. We're in New York now. We have my wife's family. We have all these things in place, and I'm doing my best to be as prepared. But yeah, there's a little bit of this. There's a lot of excitement, and then there's this, other element of, oh man, like what are the next 6 months going to look like? Because I've got a business to run. I have a 5-year-old who really needs me to show up, and all these other responsibilities to hold where I can't just be like I was last time, which was, it was COVID time. Work was a little bit lighter, and I was able to be there more as a father, as a husband during that time. So yeah, there's that element of what's this going to look like this time.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, no matter what, right? There's going to be that
yeah,
likely that question. There's a little bit of clarity on what the reality could feel like because it's
yeah,
not just theoretical, but then again,
yeah,
it's a new life form in your existence, in your realm, in your domain
yeah.
of protection.
Yeah, I want to share one more thing on that because I
Yeah.
think this you would appreciate as well. Are you a psychonaut? Do you practice psychedelics? I forget if that's part of your journey.
I mean, historically a little bit, but
Yeah.
not on a regular
So
basis. Hit me.
so this last January, I gathered a group of men. We had a journey with psilocybin, and uh, the intention for me was to do what a lot of cultures have done historically, which is to have a kind of like a father initiation. And I know in the Aborigines, at least, they men would gather to welcome in the spirit of the baby. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
That's
And
great.
so that's what I did this January. And I'll tell you, man, in the journey, it was incredible because all of a sudden I become in relationship. I become aware of my daughter's energy coming in, and I just started going like this. I'm
Mm.
waving my hands up and down, and I'm going, "Whoa, me? You're coming in through me? How lucky am I? I mean, wow, just honored and saying." I just kept going, "Welcome, welcome, thank you, thank you." And it was incredible to come into a relationship with the energy of my daughter coming in, and realizing that uh, this is an immense being that is coming into my family's dynamic. And so one thing that came through from that journey for me is this idea of expanding my container or my capacity, expanding my capacity to hold the energy of now two kids and expand my family's energetic footprint into four. And absolutely incredible. So that was by far the most impactful thing. And for anyone that's listening, highly recommend, whether or not you engage in psychedelics doesn't matter, but that you gather a group of men, ideally, some, if not all, fathers, and you have a weekend that it's fully focused on you dropping into the deeper components of you bringing that child in, whether it's your first or your fifth.
I can see you don't need the psilocybin necessarily to honor
No.
that transformation, and shift
Yep.
temporarily into that mindset and just do some sort of welcoming ceremony and tap
Yep.
in. I can't believe. So you effectively felt your daughter's energy, saw her, so to speak, and could
Yep.
admire that. Oh my gosh, you're coming to me. Like we've opened the door for you, but
Yeah.
and it could have been this. Uh, if I'm hearing you correctly, it could have been like these 25 million other souls, but it's this soul right here
Yeah.
coming in. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well, that's my worldview. My belief system is that a child chooses to come in through the co-creation of two humans, right? So my wife and I, we engaged in sex. It was great, and then a being decides, okay, yeah, that's who I want to come through. And we're not alone in this. There's a whole body of work around the idea that you can speak to the soul that wishes to come through, which is how I view parenthood. I view it as, God says, here's a child that's ready to come into this world. Are you open and ready for that responsibility? And that invitation is a deeply sacred one. And so yeah, when I felt the presence of and saw the energy of my daughter coming in, it was truly awesome, in awe, the awesome sense of the word.
factor.
Yeah,
Okay, but this is a subtle tangent, but how
sure.
about all of these babies being born in dire straits
What do you
in
mean?
around the world, in
Yeah,
tough places? Like based on your worldview, what
sure.
explains the
Suffering? Is that what you mean?
no, no, not necessarily, but if the baby chooses,
Yeah.
say, you and Caitlin,
Yep.
why would the soul options out there, choose to enter into the madness of a single family home, or through gosh, rape or incest or what, like, how do you wrap your head around that perspective?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, I want to mention the sensitivity to the question because my answer is one that has a lot of nuance, and I have a concern around answering that simply. Someone might listen to it and think that it's and miss some of the nuance. So I'll answer it, and then feel free to dig into the nuance of it. But basically, my understanding is that when we come into this physical form, there are experiences, lessons, things to learn. And it's through those experiences. And again, I don't take that lightly. I think of people who have suffer greatly in life. And uh, the people I know that have, and there's tons of people that have even written about this. Viktor Frankl, of course, being one of the most celebrated, who have suffered greatly. There are incredible lessons that we learn through suffering, and that's not to say that suffering is good or people deserve it or anything like that. But my understanding is that that's one way in which we can learn the things that we're looking to learn in the human experience. That's my understanding, and I welcome challenge on that because uh, I think that can get very bypassy. That kind of is a little bit of the belief system of the caste system back in the day. That's not what I mean. I think there's a lot of nuance in it. What else do I want to say about that? I'm going to share something here that I'm not sure if you know this, Dave, and it's a little makes me a little nervous to share it, but I feel comfortable sharing it. It's the idea of I actually did come in through this life through statutory rape. I don't know if you knew that.
Mm,
Yeah. Now I mean, I'm adopted. I think you know that.
do that.
And my understanding of, yeah, my conception was through statutory rape. And that was a hard thing to learn when I realized that. And at some point, it will become a story that I will share to help others and all of that. But yeah, that's the truth of how I came into this life.
Perhaps you. Oh man, that's a wild place to
Yeah, I'm just gonna
hold on.
drop that one there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, but just to think about, these souls entering
Yeah.
existence, or at
Sure.
least tangible existence, through
Yeah.
two people
Yeah.
hopefully making love, or otherwise.
Yeah.
You you know in theory, per your perspective, you almost had
Yeah.
you had a
Yeah.
conscious choice to enter through that, and the lessons available there. Certainly there's been lessons available to Mark Guay, and
Yeah.
you're
Definitely.
open to it.
Yeah.
But it was still upon the individuals in that
Yeah.
dynamic, and perhaps
Yeah.
the two, and then the
Yeah.
surrounding individuals, to be open to the lessons, and
Yeah.
whether they
Yeah.
take responsibility for those lessons or they ignore
Yeah.
them, is
Yeah.
still that free will factor of some sort. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there,
Goodness.
and there are lessons that I feel like I've learned even through the pain of realizing that I came into this world through pain, through unconscious manipulation and force. And I didn't come into this world through two people that like my wife have, or you and your partner have, where you consciously choose it and you make love and maybe have ceremony behind it and a prayer behind it. No, that's not at all how I came into this world. Yeah, there's a lot there. We can talk about it. I'm happy to. And there's way more to unpack for me. But in short, I have learned a lot. And there's already been some really gold lessons that I've experienced as a human that I do think I see a relation to coming into this world this way.
So three down the
Pardon?
road,
What? What?
episode three.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So kind of thinking, I was thinking about the, the day where Caitlin, knocks on your office door, or on the
Yeah,
kitchen table, and she's like, "Hey,
yeah,
guess what?" So
yeah,
what was
yeah,
the announcement? How did you learn about the
sure.
second babe in the mix?
Yeah, so we decided to start trying. I don't know exactly when, but we lit a candle, we said a prayer, and we started trying. And my wife had two early term miscarriages that were very hard, that were really, really quite challenging. And then uh, we were obviously still trying, but we weren't as, every time it wasn't as aware of it. It was just we're, having sex and enjoying each other's company and obviously not, practicing contraception. And so I had sort of forgotten about it, honestly. It was in the back of my mind, but it wasn't as pressing as now with my son. It was first try, right? So, it was like bam, ceremony, and then what, a month later or whatever, hey, here we go, and positive. This time, not so much. So when she came in, it was a little more of, okay, okay. And also, is this one gonna, last, gonna stick around, because
Yeah.
it was hard. It was hard holding on to this and then having the baby not able to stay in my wife's body. So uh, when the news came, it was definitely celebration, but also a little bit of, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, great. And then 12 weeks goes by and she's still pregnant, and then 14, 16, 18, and then around 3 months, it was, okay, another round. And then just recently, doing the baby shower again. Now, this time was different. My wife was able to actually have a real baby shower in person with friends, and it was really beautiful for her to get celebrated by women, whereas she wasn't able to do that during COVID time in 2020. So it was pretty significant for her to receive that. But yeah, hearing the news, it was definitely a moment for celebration, but kind of a little bit of a shocker. In the, oh yeah, all right, let's go. Let's reorient. And then all of a sudden, our house felt really small because now we're making room for a fourth to come in, and my wife and I both work from home. And so yeah, we're looking at what's the next thing that we're gonna have to move into.
Build a tower above your house, just like keep going up and up and up.
We're gonna be getting another place at some point. I don't know when. Probably next year at the earliest, I would say.
And
Yeah.
then, man, I can imagine the, the almost the hesitation to be excited, but the excitement and the caution and in those
Yeah.
early couple months.
Yeah.
At what point do you announce to Rowan, "Hey, guess what, little bud? You got
Yeah.
you got a little brother or sister. We're not sure yet, or maybe you did
When
know, but
when did we do that? Like you, we read a lot of stuff trying to figure out what did we do? I forget. I want to say maybe 6 months in is around where we told him, and we had a dinner and we told him about it. And I think we have on video his actual reaction. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it was very positive. It was excited. And
yeah.
that was really great to see.
And I'm wondering about that as our kiddo's 2.5. We don't have,
Yeah.
we're not expecting formally, but we're
Yeah.
it's in the mix one day soon ish.
Good for you, man. That's great. Yeah.
And you're going, well, what's
Yeah.
his? We play with the idea like, hey, do you want a little baby brother or a little baby sister someday?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he goes, no. He doesn't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know that
Yeah.
he really gets it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
did at what age, if did Rowan comprehend
Yeah.
what really was happening, or in
Yeah.
what age do you think they're able to truly process that they're going to have another baby or another human in their world, and it comes
Yeah.
through mama, and mom and dad made the baby? Like, that just is such a
Yeah.
crazy idea, I would imagine, for especially a 2.5-year-old with Leo right now. But
Yeah.
3.5, still 4.5, probably ish, 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where does
When do they
comprehension?
shift? I forget the age range, but Piaget's work takes a look at that more clearly, where they can shift to the abstract. I forget. I don't know, but I know at 5 he definitely understands it and he gets it. At the 2.5 range, I think that's better to relate it to someone else. Like, so and so has brother and sister. We're gonna have that. That's a little bit, so they go, oh, like cousin, or like, that type of relationality is often helpful at the younger age. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm excited if it works out for you when Leo's able to find out and how that works.
And Did you all know early on it was a girl, or did you just recently find out you expected a girl?
Yeah, we first sonogram, they were able to tell, and they asked if we wanted to know, and I usually I kind of whatever my wife would want for that, and she wanted to know, so we knew it was a baby girl coming in, and I gotta admit, I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to be a girl dad.
You anticipate, I mean, it's gonna be different, obviously, in,
Yeah,
in physical ways and,
yeah,
what's the what's the biggest mindset shift that you're anticipating between those 2
yeah.
experiences?
Well, I don't really know. What I will say is I do relate to having a son different than I relate to having a daughter. My wife has made it very clear on me that I'm really hard on my son sometimes, not in a punishment sense, but in an expectation sense, because that's what I experienced as a kid. I was, very much what I guess some would call a parentified kid, meaning given really serious responsibility very early on. Some would say losing a childhood or whatever.
Hmm.
But I definitely a lot was expected of me as a very young kid, and I kind of do that with my son, and it's kind of that I can notice how I can sometimes get into that whole like you're the man of the house kind of attitude, and I have to get checked a little bit to go no, he's 5, like he's not supposed to be able to do that. That's and I'm curious with my daughter what that will be like. My sense is that I'll likely be far more sensitive and far more
Yeah.
gentle with her. I don't know. I have this interesting image, quite honestly, of her being my camping buddy, of us going on these epic trips where we're like kayaking outside lava flows. Like, I don't know why,
Hmm.
but I expect to raise this brilliant young, woman who can also survive in the wild. That's kind of like this image I have. Whether or not that unfurls, I have no idea. But that, for instance, for some reason, is the image that I have in my head, and we'll see. There's also another element. I don't know if you noticed this with Leo. He's still 2.5, but there's definitely this connection that a son has with their mother. And the saying goes that daddy's little girl. So I am kind of curious if the daughter is gonna not push me away as much as my son does, because I just want to kiss him all the time. And one of our jokes I have with him is I'll say, "How many kisses do I get today?" And he goes, "0."
Dude, that's so
And I go,
relatable.
that's not acceptable. I go, how about 2? And he goes, fine.
Fine.
And then of course
That's
he cuddles with me later at night. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm curious with a daughter, we'll see. Here's the interesting thing for me, and this is a whole nother, Pandora's box that we can definitely go down, is the gender stereotypes and boy and girl and all of that. Because I was that kid in college taking sex and gender class before trans was even a thing. Like I remember a trans author coming in and getting to speak with, I think it was her at the time, and and all of that. And I've had a lot of changes around what does it mean to be a boy and what does it mean to be a girl. And there's far more nuance now. It's not as black and white or as simple as I was told, in college. And I'm reading books about, the occult side of feminism, and I'm curious because there's definitely a difference between boys and girls, and I am wondering how am I going to reinforce or allow the natural, rawness of my daughter to come through. So we'll see.
Gosh, my brother, he's got 4 kids.
Yeah,
3 are boys, one's a
yeah,
girl, and then the 2 youngest ones are boy and girl twins.
yeah,
And he's like, yeah, the little young daughter
yeah,
just cuddles him. She's so
yeah,
soft, she's
yeah.
so sweet.
I'm hoping to.
Meanwhile, yeah, exactly, right? And you're like,
Yeah,
more
yeah,
than likely. Meanwhile, this is the case with Leo, and this is the case with his sons. They're just
yeah.
like kicking him in the nuts and like
Oh yeah,
punching
oh yeah,
things, breaking
oh yeah.
everything, and pressure
I've been,
testing reality. And
you know that feeling of getting hit in the nuts. I forgot what that felt like. I got hit in the nuts so much playing hockey growing up.
yeah,
That was like a normal every day type every afternoon. You'd get hit in the nuts with either a ball or a stick or your friend just hitting you or whatever it was.
yeah. It's like,
I forgot what that was like. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you have a son, and I got hit enough times, whether it was on purpose or not. I was like, oh my God, I forgot what that feeling feels like. It's so bad.
No, I don't think that Leo is hitting me in the nuts because he knows that's gonna hurt me. He's just swinging things erratically,
Yeah, totally.
and
Yeah,
every now and then
yeah.
he's gonna.
What it was for me is I was picking my son up, and I forget what it was. We were taking, I don't know, I think he something with his couldn't get his boots off or his pants. I don't know, but he started kicking his
Yeah,
legs really
yeah,
violently, and I didn't realize, and he just kicked me
no
about
bueno,
as hard as you can right there. I didn't drop him. I'm so impressed with my ability to fall to my knees as I'm still holding him up.
right? Yeah. There's a
I will
consequence.
not let him
Called
go. Yeah.
it's called gravity, son. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, this I just want to zoom out and
Yeah.
understand Mark Guay. You
Go
know,
for it. You can ask me anything, man. I'm
yeah, yeah,
pretty.
yeah. No, but
I'll
I'm
let
like,
you know if there's anything that's uncomfortable.
no, I'm curious
Yeah.
who you are nowadays
Yeah.
that you weren't back when you first had your kid. Who is the Mark Guay today that's receiving this daughter?
Yeah.
How are you
Uh,
different?
BP and AP, I call it, before parenting and after parenting.
Hey, okay.
It's such a clear difference for me. It's a delineation of personality and time, right? So, and I share this with my friends, and I think about my friends who want to have kids and they're older. One of my dear friends is in his 50s, would love to have kids, hasn't really been in a relationship yet to make that where that's been a possibility. And I see, I have my single. I'm sure you do too, Dave. I have my single friends, and I also have friends that don't have kids. And there's a way in which they can't understand what it's like. They can talk about it, they can say the words, but they have no clue what it's really like when you're a parent. So what's the main difference? That's one of the main differences. It's uh, if I want to go on a 2 week backpacking trip through the Dolomites in Italy, that takes a serious amount of prep and also, like, do I want to be away for 2 weeks? Like, what does that actually? Can I actually do that? Um, the main difference, though, really comes down to, yes, orientation in the world, but also uh, responsibility. You know, and a kid is expensive, as you know. And so one of the main differences for me is, well, there's two, I'll say. One is the way in which I show up to my business. And there's definitely a more maturity for me. Parenting has lit a maturity for me in how I build business, how I grow my income. The second thing is I often write about and speak about how parenting is the best and hardest personal development for a person, because there are things that will show up in you as a father by being mirrored, that are mirrored by your kid. There are, like, it's a very simple thing. I don't know if Leo's doing this at all, but talking back, or not using manners, or whatever it is, it will light up something in me, and I go, whoa, like, that's not okay. And then there'll be this interesting kind of like ping pong pinball kind of thing going on in my head, where it's like I'll think of the books I've read and the research I read around parenting, and then I'll have a somatic experience with my own experience as a kid, where I was told to act a certain way or behave a certain way or whatever. And then it will kind of filter through how my wife and I want to raise our kid. And it's a really interesting personal development around, what type of healing what opportunities do I have for myself to learn more about how I operate in this world and what healing is available. And there's been a tremendous amount.
Man, the mirror idea is so real, isn't it? You know,
It is.
um,
Is it for you? Because I'm in this world, right? I a lot of my coaching goes into depth work, and so I'm not sure if it's just me, but in whenever I go in and do inner work, it almost always reflects something that showed up in my son that triggered it.
well, not everyone is probably observant like you or me, perhaps, but it's available to everyone. I would
Hmm.
suggest. But there's this moment where maybe in the last, it's probably 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, and admittedly, my wife and I were in a pretty heated argument, and
Sure. Yep.
we got to a point where we both were exchanging the word enough, enough,
Yeah.
enough, kind of aggressively. Like
Yeah.
like we just can't. And
Yep.
Leo's listening in and watching this,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and literally that same day, we're holding him accountable to something, or we're guiding him, or reprimanding him, or
And he goes,
and
enough.
guess what he says?
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was so confronting
Yeah.
and powerful. It was such a good lesson
Totally.
that we just realized that doesn't mean that we were able to shift immediately, but we recognize how imperative it is for us
Yeah.
to be stewards of our own energy in the moment, and
Yeah.
to show respect even when we disagree, and even
Yeah.
to close the loop, to actually, it's inevitable you're going to see the world differently with everybody, and your wife a little bit, and there will be like a disconnection perhaps temporarily, but you have to reconcile. And so we're like, well, if he's going to see us get
Yep.
feisty with each other, he also needs to see us
Repair.
reconcile and repair.
Yeah.
So
Crucial.
that was interesting. And then he has now this little adorable yet concerning facial expression where he'll scowl
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he'll say no. And you're wondering, like, well, where did he pick up that facial expression? He's clearly watching, he's mimicking.
Yep.
And you're like, well, even when we're gently speaking to him, are we like, because he's doing this same little scrunchy nose and
Mhm.
thing, and
Yeah.
Mac has a version of it. I have a version of it.
Yep.
Just realize, man, everything you do, your daughter is watching. And
100%. Yeah.
that could explain the stories they have down the road. Right now, he's still moldable, so to speak. But
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
I think they say that with the first 4, 5, 6 years, that is 90% of the programming is baked
Yeah.
in early on at that point.
Yeah.
So we're going.
Programming around safety, about interpersonal relations,
Mm-hmm.
the core tenets of your personality.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that's what boggles that's wild to me. We develop these characteristics so early on that become our personal reality, that then just become our personality, and we think that that's immutable, that we can't change that, and it's very
Yeah.
challenging too.
Yeah. Well, there's momentum behind it, because I think we're setting them on a trajectory with these
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
couple years, and the agency to disrupt that momentum, or even the power, so to speak, that to
Yeah.
combat the momentum and the energy on that path
Yeah.
is probably what's so difficult. But to your point, that word immutable, like they aren't immutable. In fact, they are mutable or malleable
Yeah.
with the right guidance and support, and the right awareness and courage and agency. But
Yeah.
why not set them on the right trajectory, or at least maybe not a specific perfect trajectory, but not these trajectories, and not these trajectories, but kind of these
Sure. Yeah.
generous,
Yeah.
wholesome trajectories. That's that's a confronting reality as a young dad, I think, for us.
The super confronting reality, especially, I don't know about you, but I'm very affected by, um, for some reason, I notice when parents lose their kids. Like Martin Short, I believe, just lost his daughter to suicide, which is, yeah, one of his daughters. I don't know how many kids he has, but I just remember picking that up. I'm a fan of Martin Short's work, and that just hit me, and I just thought, oh my gosh, how painful that would be after you spend so much time and energy doing your best to have it not work out. Like I see now how parents can so easily be affected by the happiness that their kids possess when they get older. I know there's ways in which you can let go to that to some degree, but generally speaking, we want our kids to be happy, successful, fulfilled. And I now have a more tangible understanding of how painful that would be to see our kids suffer as adults because of how hard, especially how conscious we are here in trying to mold them in a way that sets them up for success. It's wild, brother. It really is. Especially I don't know your dad. I know he was a forester. You told me quite a bit about him. Seems like a man large, pretty larger than life kind of guy. But I know you're at home now. I recognize the pine on the wall behind you, and I know that you're very present in the evolution of it. And this is still rather new. This is really just one generation later, and you have all these dads. I don't know, obviously, I don't know the data of how many, but in our world, it seems like every dad I know is super present with their kids. And I am curious, what is that going to look like? Not just for how it molds and shapes young boys and and young daughters as well, but just how it changes things, when our kids talk about growing up and childhood and the fact that mom and dad both were there and dad was very present in in the in the everyday, not just the big occasions.
Yes, yes, and I just came across this really interesting revelation or mention of uh, pre-industrial revolution.
Huh?
Boys and girls, but boys were raised by their fathers. They were literally side by side in the fields or working on the farm or fixing, building,
Oh
solving
yeah,
problems,
yeah,
right? How
yeah,
fascinating that you actually
yeah.
I got to find this clip because it was so. I should have sent it on to you. You're the kind of guy that would have loved it. There was the guy describes it almost as though you just absorbed your father, and
Mm, okay.
you learn to be a man without having to be told. You just kind of became a man because you had the perfect example right there. Then the Industrial Revolution shows up. It takes fathers out of the house
Into the factory.
into the factory and so forth.
Yeah,
And there's a
yeah,
version of that right now where you and I are unique. We get to work from home and
yep,
go pop into the big city or fly to
yep,
wherever and come back. But when I'm to this day, we did a little nanny share last quarter of the year, but
yep.
we're still sharing basically day-to-day responsibilities with our
Yeah,
schedules.
yeah,
Because so yes, he does. Leo currently has this unique dynamic. He gets a tremendous amount of our attention and presence. And sounds like you and Caitlin kind of have a similar opportunity or dynamic. But most dads out there right now, as present as they're being, or as intentional as we're realizing we need to be in this generation of fathers, they're still taken away from, and because this is the nature of our society.
sure.
So it will be interesting to see what will the next generation or two or three be
Yeah,
afforded or have to overcome in order to truly steward their kiddos
yeah,
into
yeah.
sovereign individuals.
Did I tell you that I uh, was in the audience at Oprah when they were talking about young boys and the state of young boys?
Saw you in the background. We exchanged a quick text there. So tell us a little bit about the conversation. Scott Galloway, I believe
Yeah,
was
yeah. It was a guy named Scott Galloway who I didn't really know his stuff until
a
that day. I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
little
I've
bit.
been listening to a little bit of it since. Read his book, The Algebra of Wealth, and then he had that other book. The name's the one that they gave to us that day. Notes on Being a Man, I think it's called.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was. Here's the thing. I'm glad to see a very mainstream audience talking about boys and or young men and what's going on. And it was also kind of challenging, honestly, to be in the audience, especially they sat me behind Oprah because I was wearing a bright blue scarf and Oprah was dressed all in black. And so I think the contrast was really nice to see her. So here I am, and I'm aware, they did a little makeup on our faces because they were going to be on camera the whole time. And then I'm aware of the fact that I'm on camera for this whole thing. And I did not like some of the conversation. In other words, I didn't like being quiet during parts of the conversation because it felt very staged
Hmm.
and like it was just touching the surface. And I guess you could argue that's what the Oprah audience needs, just the initial element of the conversation. but it felt very much like there was an opportunity to really go deeper into what is going on, uh, yet I stayed quiet. I really thought about speaking up, but then I guess I said to myself, being someone who, puts on shows and stuff like that too, it's not my place. I wasn't given the microphone. I wasn't asked. I'm gonna be an audience member. That's what I was asked to do. But it was hard in a way. Specifically, what am I talking about? There was one moment where this guy, 22, I think, was talking about being lonely, and that was one of the main threads of men are lonely. Some things I did not know anything about. Apparently, a lot of young men are not engaging. They're opting out of dating or they're opting out of relationships. Didn't even know that was a thing. And a lot of young women are saying, men rarely approach them, which again, news to me, did not know that. Uh, but this young man was talking about how he's lonely, and Oprah asked him, "Well, what are you saying to each other when you're texting each other?" And he says, "We're texting each other that we're lonely." And she goes, "So what you're literally writing is we are lonely?" And he goes, "Yes." And I'm sitting there going, "Bullshit! No, you're not. You're not texting each other saying that you're lonely. That's not what men typically do. What you're likely doing is you're not talking about it, you're isolating yourself, and then if you do talk, you're talking through video games or talking about anything other than the way in which you actually feel." And it was,
And perhaps if I can jump in, you're probably
yeah,
complaining about being lonely without saying the
totally.
word lonely versus
Yeah,
saying, how
yeah,
can we, versus like a productive, how might we
right.
find some babes? How do we go hunt down some babes?
Right. And it's not that there isn't sadness there and challenging, but it's that victim mindset that I wanted to be like, let's pause for a second. Like, what's really going on here? What is the way in which you're further creating this isolation and this sense of loneliness, and what can be done with it instead of complaining or instead of isolating or instead of further feeling the shame that you probably feel? Let's bring that shame to light in a space where you're not going to be shamed, you're going to be loved and appreciated. Feel that pain. Great. That's good. It's hard. We're here with you. We'll hold you in that. And then the evolution of now, how can you outgrow the patterns that you've developed that led you into that sense of loneliness?
And
What skills can you learn? What are the challenges you can lovingly, share with your friends to say, let's go and go talk to girls, so you can experience the challenge of it, because it's hard. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be, rejection is one of the hardest things for anyone, men in particular, to experience. So anyways, there was just a lot there,
but
and
it's also everywhere. Like life is much of life is rejection and overcoming it.
yeah. Well, that was the one thing Scott Galloway mentioned quite a bit. I could tell he was quite frustrated with the conversation. That was my impression of it. But one thing he kept reiterating is what he called uh, the I think resilience muscle, he called it, but the rejection muscle. Like, get out there, put in the reps. And he talked about how valuable that is in career. You're going to get rejected a lot. How can you allow that to be an opportunity for you just to grow and just to learn and to get better, as opposed to opt out? You can't opt out of everything in life. That doesn't go anywhere well.
And these are all implications that result from complications that are more upstream. Did he account for like how did we this generation get here? Because the tutelage of the
Yeah.
parents of this young generation are, I don't know, guilty might be a harsh word, but they are responsible or a contributing factor to this downstream implication. Is that not true?
What do you mean by that?
Well, didn't isn't this the natural result of the everyone gets a trophy
Oh,
kind of
entitlement,
kind of
such.
yeah, kind
Yeah.
of parental style?
You mean everyone gets a trophy and kids
There's no
don't learn what it's
consequences.
like to lose
You
and
don't,
feel
yeah,
that pain?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's no
I mean, I
consequences
I could
to
see I could certainly see the argument. I mean, there's a lot of things, Dave. Again, I have a lot of compassion. 70% of successful suicides are white men. I have a lot of compassion for men struggling, and I certainly don't want to just say, just pull up your bootstraps and just get out there and do it, because I think that bypasses the pain body that is actually has a lot of value to feel, so that you don't just continually pass on generational trauma. But what I will say is this, is that uh, there's a lot of systematic factors that I think play a key role in this. The fact that you can have artificial girlfriends, the fact that porn is accessible to men in a way that was certainly not my case. I'm from the generation, I think, like you, where you had one friend who ripped out, one photo and hid it under a log in the woods, and you would all go, and look at the log under, and like you knew where that log was that had the naked photo, and you would go and look at it, and it was just this like, what is going on? That's how it was for me. Or when internet came out, it took what, 30 minutes to download a photo, or maybe just you would see one nipple start to appear, in the photo. Kids now are inundated with not just excessive porn, but also AI porn, which is, and then you have OnlyFans. You have this ability to have these artificial relationships that
Yep.
don't make it necessary. So I think that plays a role, uh, certainly. But yeah, the coddling, the everyone gets a trophy. That's another factor as well. So to me, it's a both and. How can men come together and let kids, feel seen in their confusion and their pain, but also not just let them sit there in that victimhood, but say, and how are we going to evolve beyond this? And that's often where I think the conversation falls short, and where I saw it fall short in the Oprah interview, where it really was more so around the challenges and the kind of victim mindset that I really saw a lot of these young men talk at least through. Their framing was coming through that.
And just to add one extra layer of it, and you're a big fan of this notion of creating a rite of passage for our youngsters, which
Yeah.
historically hasn't existed in our culture. Did Scott Galloway touch on that at all?
No, and I wish I was able to ask a question, because that was the question I wanted him to ask, because I wanted it to be solution focused, and it wasn't really. I wanted to say, Scott, you talk about in his book, he talks about hazing and how hazing is a rite of passage. It's not. It's a very immature rite of passage for boys who weren't given an actual rite of passage, and it doesn't do what a real rite of passage does. But it's a start. It creates a sense of feeling seen by your people, your peers, which gives you that sense of a village. So it's a start. But I wanted to ask him that. Like, what are some other ways in which we can create these rites of passage for these young men? Because I agree that is clearly missing. And a rite of passage has a few things to it, but one of the main elements is you need to have a group of people that witness you going through a very challenging experience that feels like you could have died. That's why binge drinking is so popular in the fraternizing and in fraternities and sororities. It's this idea of you get blackout drunk, your friends are all there, and then it's this fun story that you're telling. It creates this sense of death and being seen by people, but it's not as nowhere near as deep as a traditional one. I would have loved to have seen Scott talk about that. Now, to be clear, I read Scott's book, and I don't think Scott actually has. I would love to have a conversation with him, because I don't think he actually has the depth for that. Meaning, I don't believe he's had those experiences. I don't believe he's gone down that path. He seems to be far more of a pragmatic type of guy, and and for him, some of his solutions to uh, social rejection were lubrication through alcohol. So have a few drinks and go out there and talk to women, which is, sure, that might work, but more likely than not, that actually doesn't help young men, develop the muscles that they really need to develop. So, yeah, Scott was good. He's good. I'm glad that he's talking about it, but definitely did not have the depth that a lot of other men speaking about this have.
Yeah. I don't know Scott Galloway enough, but my sense of him is he's a great observer as a professor at NYU. I believe he's a
Mhm.
NYU professor and
Marketing,
has a great
marketing.
brand.
Yeah.
So to write a
Made
book,
a ton of money. The guy grew up poor,
yeah,
single mom basically,
mm,
and is now one of the wealthiest men in the world because of his successes in creating businesses and selling them. But he grew up pretty poor in California.
well, and so he's able to at least uh, sound the alarm, which is an important function, and
Yeah,
yet
definitely.
the solutions. And I'll flag this for your attention. And I intend to have this gentleman Dan Smith on the podcast
Nice.
soon. Voyage Rites. And
Okay, cool.
he's trying to he's got the practical. There's many movements out there, or uh, guys out there helping with this movement, but
Yeah.
Voyage Rites is they've got this repeatable curriculum. Like we could you could hire them, or you could participate, or you could
Yep.
facilitate your own through some of their work. So there's a response to this that's encouraging.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm
Uh,
looking at our timestamp, and I wanted to
yeah.
maybe wrap with the this idea of fatherhood is powerful, and that's the large theme of this podcast. But within that, of course, is uh, we're the partner to a mother, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what do we do to be the best partner on this journey to our mamas?
Yeah.
So what is it
Great question.
taking of you, or what is Caitlin needing out of you? What are you
Yeah.
doing to guide,
Hmm.
support, and champion Caitlin in this second iteration of
Yeah.
motherhood for
Yeah.
her?
Good question. And I'd love to hear Mac's thoughts. Mac, right? Mackenzie, your wife's
Mhm.
name. I'd love to hear her thoughts on it too. I hope one day the four of us get to sit down and have a meal. And I'd love for my wife to meet yours. Full transparency, I consistently feel like I'm not doing enough when it comes to as a partner. Um, but what I've learned is that pregnancy is a rite of passage for women. It brings them to something that can literally kill them. And so it is scary. And I am seeing my wife now uh, get concerned, full transparency. My son, I don't know where this came from. I didn't say it. My son 2 weeks ago said, "Mommy, are you going to die?" Yeah, seriously. And I wasn't there when he had asked it. She told me later. And I held her as she, cried about that because that is something that could happen. Very likely will not, but it was terrifying when that question came through. And I'm seeing how my wife is, rightfully so. There's a depth of fear, a fear of, is not just about the birth, but about, a woman, they're in the fourth trimester, they really need to work on recovery. And our culture kind of has this sense of, oh, you had the baby, just get right back at it. And that's not what it's like. And it's not, and it's more than 3 months, though the fourth trimester at least is kind of a more popular concept of give them 3 more months for their body to get back. But no, it's more like 2 years, depending on how much breastfeeding they're doing, right? So I'm doing my best to try to say, hey, we have, these people in our corner. I've created spreadsheets around like an ideal schedule. We've had conversations with her in-laws, or my in-laws, her parents, her sister who lived down the street. I have a cleaning crew that's going to start coming, to help clean the house to make it a little bit easier for myself, really, because I'd be the one doing the cleaning for at least the first several months,
Mm.
and identifying where to get takeout, and we have a few friends who are going to be helping with meals, but it doesn't seem to be doing enough, quite frankly. My wife has a genuine concern around the effects of postpartum, rightfully so, and I'm really doing my best to help her feel safe, help her feel comfortable, and I'm just aware now at what's her name, Allison. Forget her last name right now. She wrote a talks a lot about the role that women, the experiences that women have, and she often talks about how women are more often than not living in fear. Like there's an element of there's something they're scared about, and Allison Hill, I think is her name. And pregnancy kind of brings that online, where I'm realizing that, her body is again getting into a sense where her body is being given up for this kid that's coming in. And I'm watching her um, struggle with that. And not saying all do, but my wife is a go-getter. Even right now, I literally hear the sewing machine going. Like she just works a lot and she likes to. She's a creator. So if she's not making clothes, she's making jewelry. If she's not making jewelry, she's writing a book. If she's not writing a book, she's practicing her singing bowls. And she's not doing that, she's practicing her singing and creating videos. Like she just works. She's a workhorse.
Mhm.
And when you give birth, it's a little bit harder to do that, especially when you're breastfeeding. So she has really high standards for herself, and I'm watching her navigate those. So I'm doing my best. But I welcome any other advice of how to even, show up better, because I want to show up in a way where she feels completely safe. She feels ready to go. And I think we're almost there, but not nowhere near as close as I would like. I want her to say, "Honey, you're amazing. I feel so safe. Thank you for all that you do." And once in a while, she'll say that, but generally speaking, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Mm. Well, I don't know that I have the counsel for you per se. And this is a recent topic with Mackenzie because she's in her corporate capacity still, but has her whole
Yeah,
birth coaching practice she's building out, which is all
yeah.
about.
Her content's beautiful. I enjoy it.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
pass that along. I mean, it's mindset, it's
Mhm.
nutrition, and
Yep.
it's movement.
Yep.
Before pregnancy, even preconception, if you're struggling or striving,
Yeah.
and then of course postpartum. But the thing that came to mind that I think if anyone's listening and you're about to be a new dad, the solve, and yes, it's that stuff like, how are we going to keep the house in order? So can
Yep.
we get a cleaning crew in, or can we ask our family to come, you know, help us out with some cleaning? That's part of it for sure. The biggest thing, imagine the burden, even if you're not breastfeeding, but especially if you're breastfeeding, is fueling mama. Because
We have a
and
lot of
then
food frozen, ready to go.
exactly. So, if anyone's listening, it's like the meal prep idea, and Mac does this for some of her clients. Well, she'll
Mm.
meal prep, or she'll give, frankly, the husband the the process to
Yep.
make big batch meals, and she'll go in and do that together, or a meal train, which would
Yeah.
be,
We
there's
have we have
literally,
that set up. Yeah.
yeah, there's websites for this.
Yeah.
It's like if you can keep both the dad fueled, of course, but mama fueled especially, and make the burden of fueling the family easier.
Mhm.
That is almost the force multiplier.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, they need to hear us. They need to hear us say, "You've got this. This is
Yeah.
going to
I
be
got
hard.
this.
This is going to be
Wait,
hard."
I got this or you got this?
Well, both maybe, but especially like, "You've got this.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
got this,
Yeah.
and I've got you."
Yeah.
And I remember leading up to birth, and literally the moments leading up to birth, or the hours leading up to birth, it was like, "Mac, this will be hard, but you've got this." And
Yeah.
you're not trying to sugarcoat it. It's not, this will be hard and you've got this. Right? So there's those verbal sentiments,
Yeah.
and then there's the actions that coincide with it. So it's
Yeah. Thanks, man.
flowers and cards and foot massages and little sticky notes, and tangible things. Like, it's almost knowing your wife's love language can go a long way, even if you don't even have to take the test of the love languages, but just understand, how do you truly show it so that your wife is like, without a doubt, I know Mark is thinking of me, which I bet she does, by the way. Even though she might not say it, she's a little preoccupied making cool shit, and one of those things is a brand new daughter. So,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you very
Mark
much. Yeah,
Guay,
I have a feeling those words are gonna really land, particularly during delivery. So thank you for that.
my man, appreciate you jumping in just before maybe the tied for third biggest event of your life, and such a special treat to see you and talk with you as you're expecting and welcoming in your daughter. So I'm waiting with
Appreciate
bated
your
breath
Yeah, I'll send you a photo.
and it's any minute now. I know it's in the next couple weeks, or
No, no,
uh,
literally any day now. Yeah, the due date's March 14th, but Roan came a week early. So a week early would be in 2 days or 3 days or whatever. So we'll see.
exciting times, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for your
Thanks,
time,
man.
buddy. See you in the next one.
Appreciate you.
Later. There you have it. I believe the world is calling on us as fathers to step up and be stewards and shepherds of those around us. The times are interesting, and they are demanding more out of us than perhaps we once realized. It's because of that I want to celebrate and honor the ultimate role of fatherhood and set up dads for maximum impact. So thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch the coming episodes. And above all, share this episode with a father you admire. See you on the next one.
Go dad, here we go now. Oh yeah, the ultimate role now. Oh yeah, here we go now.